Just to introduce myself, I'm Shell. I am a mom who coaches other women specifically around health and trauma. I've been doing eye readings. I know some of you from doing eye readings, and it's kind of fun to connect with you that way. But I am an iridologist. I'm a master herbalist and just love all things health. So I also wrote a book on detoxing and the importance of clearing out our system. So that's kind of a little bit about me. But I just want to jump into the first aid. So how many of you have ever been part of an accident or seen little things happen? Just last week, I was at my in-laws' house and my 8-year-old son was peeling potatoes and took off the tip of his finger. Well, while I was helping him heal that, my little girl did the exact same thing. She's 4. So I know that accidents happen all the time. I took the cayenne pepper out of my father-in-law's cupboard and poured it all over the wound. He was laughing at me. He knows me. But he's like, does that really work? And I said, watch. And within 30 seconds, even though the whole tip of the finger was gone and blood was everywhere, it clotted and he was fine. And we were able to put the comfrey on and heal him. So this stuff is really powerful to know and what to do. So what can you guys do in an emergency? I want to help give you as much information as possible. I know this class is short. For those of you interested, I'm going to pass around a little sign-up sheet. It has a QR code on it. You can go ahead and scan that. I'm going to do part 2 of this class online. I'll have a Zoom link on Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. If you want to join, you can watch that class. If it doesn't work for you, I'll put that recording in my Facebook group and you can rewatch it. So I'm going to give you as much information as I can. If you want all the details in part 2, I have that available. If you want one of my first aid kits, on the back of it is a QR code too. That's going to give you downloaded information on all the herbs that I'll be sharing. That's a lot more detailed than I have today. So I want to share my very top favorite herbs for herbal first aid. And just because this is quick, I'm going to give you all the information I can, but feel free to raise your hand and ask questions if needed. My very top favorite herb is cayenne pepper. How many of you love using cayenne pepper? Some of you are brave. Good job. I tell people, drink cayenne pepper, and they say, I don't like cayenne pepper, but it's worth it. Cayenne pepper can stop a heart attack. It is just a great herb to have all around, but just for that alone is powerful. It can stop a nosebleed within a minute. I grew up always having nosebleeds, and I'd hold my nose. How many of you have done this? And put ice on the back of your neck, and it would just bleed for hours and hours and hours. Well, when I discovered cayenne pepper, I would drink it. Within a minute, the bleeding was gone, and I could go on and live my life. Such a great thing to know what to do with. My little girl, we went to Cabo last year for a family vacation, and she is 4, and she, at the dinner table, was running around with a little friend, and I hear this scream, and she had sliced open her whole eyebrow. And back at the hotel room, I knew I had my first aid kit. So I picked up my little girl. I didn't even talk to anyone. And I ran across the whole courtyard up into our room with blood everywhere. And she was crying and just sad. And I knew, even though it was by her eye, that I needed to put the cayenne pepper on it. And I sprinkled it on, and she was still shaking and in shock. The cayenne pepper really helps with the shock too, and was able to wash that off. And notice it was still bleeding just a little bit. It was a pretty good gash, and I put cayenne pepper back on. Once I rinsed it off again, all bleeding was stopped, and I could see what the damage was. Then I put a little bit of lavender and held her on my feet as I sprinkled some of the comfrey powder on. By this time, she had fallen asleep in my arms, and my husband came up with the medics from the hotel, and he asked them, what can we do? And they're like, we don't know. You need to go to the doctor. And we're like, well, aren't you the medics? And they're like, yeah, but we don't know anything. And I said, well, do you have a butterfly bandage? Because I didn't have any of those. And they're like, no, we can cut some out of some medical tape that they had. And I was like, well, that's not helpful. Do you have super glue? And they're like, no, we don't have super glue. That's for plastic. And I was like, no, I just need something for her eye. Luckily, there was a shop across the street. My husband ran and got some super glue. We were able to glue it. She didn't have any infection, and she just has a little scar. If I hadn't had all that stuff with me, we would have spent the whole day in the hospital. That's what they said happens there. And I would have worried about infection, and we would have lost a whole day of vacation. So I was like, it's so helpful. I just had a little prompting to put this first aid kit in my luggage and was able to help my little girl that way. So cayenne pepper is just an amazing herb. The next one is charcoal powder. Charcoal powder, I've even taken this from a campfire. I had my son get really sick. I think he got food poisoning from a hot dog while we were up there and was vomiting. And I told my husband, grab some of the ashes and let's have him drink it. I knew it was in that fire. It was just wood. Be careful, though, what you take in with charcoal powder. But I had him drink it. Charcoal powder has a great ability to neutralize toxins. If you call poison control and your kid gets something poisonous that they've ingested, they recommend that you do charcoal powder. So it's great to have around, especially for under the sink chemicals and other things. It's also great for any digestive disturbances. So if you do have a bellyache or a stomach flu, I recommend drinking charcoal powder. Charcoal powder doesn't really taste like anything. It might leave your mouth black a little bit, but it really does help neutralize any acidity in your stomach. Yeah. Does it help with nausea? Oh, does it help with seasickness? Ginger, when I get to that, helps a little bit better with peppermint, but it can really help if you're feeling like there's stuff in your stomach and you're nauseated, then it will help with that. So it does have some benefit, but not completely to prevent seasickness. The next one is chamomile. Chamomile is one of my favorite herbs because I have children and they tend to get anxious over some things, a little bit nervous, or that they eat too much sugar and then their energy is high and then they're driving me crazy. So I give them chamomile tea. It's also really helpful if they have sleep issues. I put it in my emergency kit because when we're traveling, my kids don't get the regular sleep. They don't eat their regular food. It can be really balancing for digestion, helps with attention disorder issues. Even if it's not with traveling, that's a really great thing to be using. It really calms the immune system. My son is allergic to bees, and every time he gets stung, I give him chamomile, and really helps that. Right now with all the histamine stuff going on with allergies, take chamomile. It will be really helpful for allergies. I'll share some of the other ones with the peppermint and stuff, but that's a really great one to use. Comfrey powder. I know there is some fear around people ingesting comfrey powder. I say it's fine, especially under small amounts, but comfrey externally is really helpful. They call it the bone knitting herb. They've done studies where they've taken tissues that have been severed, put them in water, and they'll come back together. So it's a really powerful herb if you've really damaged tissue or hurt bones. So let's say someone broke a bone and you're out on a hike. Get the comfrey, mix it with water, put it directly on the wound, use cayenne pepper to help it go deep into the tissues, and then that will be really healing for inflammation and for bruising and all the things until you can get that taken care of. I've even dealt with so many sprained ankles and things just using comfrey powder. So those are all the 4 powders. In my first aid kit, everything comes in these small bottles. I have 4 of these that are powders and 4 of them that are essential oil rolling bottles to use immediately. So that the purpose of that was that everything is easily accessible. You can either pour it on or roll it on, especially for children because some of these are really strong. So having it in a roller is good for children. The oils that I use, the first one is eucalyptus. Most of us know eucalyptus for breathing, right? It's really powerful to open up the airways. Eucalyptus is also really great for things like allergies, for stress and anxiety. It's really great for pain and for calming shock around pain. It's also really great for infection. So if you're worried about getting an infection, go ahead and use eucalyptus. I also love it for things like bee stings or mosquito bites. It's really soothing for those kind of bug things. Lavender is one of the most common herbs. We all know it for relaxing, right? But I like to use lavender for burns, specifically because it is in a base of fractionated coconut oil. I don't like to put it directly on. I like to put more of the comfrey on, but you can rub it around the burns and breathe it in. So someone was asking me, I just want to address this before I forget, how do you use these herbs? On the bottles of each herb individually, it gives a little dosage and some basic uses for it. But for the essential oils, specifically, you always want to have them breathe it first. Depending on the wound, like if it was a mosquito bite, put it directly on the mosquito bite. If it's a headache, put it around the temples, always on the back of the neck. The bottom of the feet is a really good place, and on the abdomen. So using any of these oils in that way, depending on how they feel, can be really helpful. So, yeah, go ahead. You said you used it on a mosquito? Oh, seizure. You used it for a seizure. Oh, my goodness. Wow. She said she put it on the bottom of the feet. Yeah, for a seizure, and was able to help her calm down. That's amazing, and balancing that. Wow. I love that. I know I was talking to Liz, who put this conference on. They use peppermint oil for their daughter who has an allergy to avocados, I think. So, yeah, these little simple things are powerful. What did she use? Lavender, right? Yeah, sorry. She used lavender for the seizures. Lavender is very calming, but it is a great antibacterial. It's good for some fungus. I would use some stronger herbs if it's a major fungus infection like black walnut. But for emergency, if you're exposed to something like a tick bite, you want to really clear out some of any infection that can get in, I would use lavender. Peppermint is not only easily accessible. We know that peppermint comes with food and helps with digestion, right? But it is a really strong herb. So peppermint has the ability to neutralize some toxins because of that. So I use peppermint for pain specifically. If someone sprains their ankle, you're going to want to use peppermint to be healing. I know I get a lot of people in my detoxes that they get a little bit of the Herxheimer reactions when they first start and they get headaches. Peppermint's really good. I like to combine it with things like ginger so that it can be really helpful with the pain. But not only is it good for digestive stuff, but it really helps with all the shock and stuff too. So, and then ginger. Ginger has this ability to carry with it other herbs and make them stronger. So let's say you get achy muscles after a long day of hiking. You're going to want to use ginger. You can use it with peppermint. Ginger is really good for stomach. So when it comes to seasickness, you're going to want to use ginger with the peppermint. I love how so many of these herbs combine. You'll probably hear me say this a lot, but they're really helpful in having two together and balancing things. Ginger is strong, fresh, but in an oil, it's just really strong too. So when it comes to deep healing, so many of these can be combined. So let's talk about some of the things that come up. I had my son recently cut his finger, and he just cut it on a piece of glass in our bathroom. My first aid kit was kind of just outside the door, so I went to grab it. And as I ran around the corner, my husband was in the bathroom with my son when he did this. He's 15. And I hear this boom. And I came running back, and he had fainted. He saw the blood, and he was out. And so I said to him, "Hey, bud, you're going to need to drink the cayenne pepper. Now, if you happen to have me as a mom, you probably know I give my kids cayenne pepper a lot, and they hate it. They don't like it." And I said, "You're going to need to drink it." And it was so interesting because he was like, okay. At this point, he was completely pale. And the moment he drank that cayenne pepper, the blood came back to his face. He was able to sit, and we were able to help him heal. It is so helpful to know, though, that this stuff does help with shock. When I did that, I'm like, I need to do the comfrey. And he's like, no, I just need to breathe. And I was like, okay, energetically, he knew what he needed to do, right? He needed to go take a little break. And I wasn't like, I was a little worried about like maybe him getting a concussion because he hit his head. So I said, can I do anything for that? And he said, you can rub my feet. And so I was able to put the lavender and just calm him down and rub his feet while he fell asleep. And he was fine. So just having all these herbs is really helpful. When it comes to eucalyptus, one of the hardest things, especially I coach a lot of moms, is that they struggle to be able to handle stress. And one thing we forget to do is to breathe. And so I will just tell people, if you have anxiety or things feel hard or overwhelming, grab like the eucalyptus, hold your heart and just take a breath, because it's okay just to breathe. So even though it's not an emergency, these herbs are really helpful for everyday problems that come up. Do you guys have any questions about these basic herbs? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so she just asked if they have to be in an oil form to work. No, if you have fresh peppermint, use that. That's the better option. But the hardest thing for me is, as a master herbalist, people would call me and say, hey, Shell, I'm struggling with this, or my kid has this. What can I do? And I was like, what do you have? And they didn't have things. So this is hard to hold one-handed. So I created this little kit so that you can throw it in your purse, throw it in your car, put it in a backpack, so you have access to all of these herbs, because the greatest solution is to go to your backyard and grab them, right? But if you don't have access to that, it's so helpful to have something just on you all of the time, because most of the problem is that we're not prepared. I use this kit like almost every day. We went down to my in-laws, I was mentioning with my kids. My kids got in a little bit of we have these go-karts and they rolled them. So they got all the cuts and scrapes. My son got a bee sting. My daughter was having tummy aches. So all of these herbs were so useful and helpful. My father-in-law cut his finger. My mother-in-law has a muscle degeneration condition and was feeling achy, so I rubbed some ginger on her. This is not just stuff for emergencies. These things, if you start using them in your life, can be really powerful and help you in healing if you just know what to do. So, like I said, that if the mom calls me and their kids have a cold, do you guys know what I would recommend in the herb kit? First of all, open up your bowels. That's the first rule of all healing, right? You want to cleanse and open up the first area where your body needs to detoxify. So I hope you guys, being in this class now, will know that if you get a cold, what's the first rule to cure it? Open up your bowels. Use things like prune juice, psyllium husks. I like to use Dr. Christopher's lower bowel formula. Anything like that, just to open up the bowels, can be really helpful. The second thing is to help your fever. Get in the water. Drink the chamomile tea. Drink peppermint tea. Help that fever have a purpose. Then you want to be boosting the immune system. So grab the cayenne pepper. Get the mucus out of the throat. Put the peppermint on. Help kill that infection and really raise the energy of the body. Use things like garlic. It's so helpful. 4 cloves of fresh garlic is equal to an adult dose of antibiotics. So use the things in your kitchen and have them really help you with healing and energy. Do you guys have any questions around that? Go ahead. Do I make tinctures? Yeah, you can take any of these herbs and make tinctures with them. You can go get your peppermint leaves, put them in alcohol or glycerin. I do classes on how to do that, but you can do that with any of these. Make your own herbs, have them easily accessible, and allow them to really have a part in your home and your life. My kids, I mentioned I have 4 of them, now know if they come to mom with a wound, they're going to get the herbs, right? And they don't like things like prune juice, but they know they drink it because it really helps them. They now enjoy a hot bath because that's one of the basic rules of how to build your immune system and let the body work with what it has. Your body wants to have a fever because it's burning off the toxins, right? We don't want to stop that fever. There are herbs for stopping fevers, but I prefer to work with the body. As long as you're having what we call a wet fever, as long as you're in the water and drinking lots of teas, that fever is going to be okay. If you have a dry fever, that's where it's dangerous. You don't want to let yourself get dehydrated or sweat too much or not be in the water. So really learning these simple tools on what to do in an emergency can really help. If you do it this way, if you put eucalyptus on, raise your fever, work with the body, you don't tend to get the lung congestion and other problems of having it sit in there. Yeah, go ahead. Come up here. Sorry, it's just really loud around here, so if you have a question. You have plantain? Oh, comfrey. Yeah. What can you do with comfrey? Comfrey does grow wild. So if you plant it and have a lot of it, you're lucky. I love to pick it. You can use comfrey immediately. Chew it up in your mouth, put it on the wound. Plantain, which is not in my kit, but plantain has the ability to draw toxins out of the blood. So if you get mosquito bite or a snake bite or spider bite, use things like that. Comfrey can do that too. Chew it up, put it on directly if you have it fresh. If not, anything is able to be frozen. You can freeze it and then put it in smoothies and drink it, have your kids do it that way, or you can just put it directly on the wound. So if my kids were to get cut and I had comfrey around, I would just put the leaves on directly. I would use the lavender or anything, use it like a Band-Aid and let it heal that way. So all the fresh herbs that you have access to, like right now, lavender will be coming on soon, all the comfreys and peppermints. These are fun spring herbs. We don't like necessarily have eucalyptus, but you can use all of them. Ginger, it's always better fresh. If you can grate it and drink it, it's going to be better for you that way. So did that answer your question? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so lungs, it's really helpful to breathe. Eucalyptus is going to be helpful. I have a little shower diffuser, put eucalyptus on in the shower and breathe with that heat and that steam. But if you do have mucus, you want to get rid of it. So that's more of a clean out your bowels, open up your liver, kidneys, and then move into your lungs if it's like a systematic problem. But if you have like deep coughs, make sure you do that first and then use herbs. You can do like an onion poultice. Cook an onion on low till it's slimy, put it on the chest warm, and allow that to help break up the mucus. So just things in your home can be really easily accessible, and that can really help if it goes to pneumonia or bronchitis or something worse like that. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, like I mentioned in the beginning, this is what my first aid kit looks like. I know I don't have time to cover it all, but in my class, part 2 that I'm going to do online, I really go into all the herbs more and talk about individual questions on what to do with herbal first aid, because I know these 8 herbs are really powerful and strong. There are other things that you can do. So I'm happy to answer questions when I jump on that. So it is a Zoom call. You're free to just use the link. If you sign up with the QR code, you can get into that. But with my herb kit, you get the Band-Aids, you get the super glue, all 8 herbs, and a card that tells you what to do with the QR code that I mentioned on the back, that you can get all the details that way. And then if you're interested in just signing up here, you can just scan this QR code. That will take you to my class and send you an email that gives you the information on how to get this. So I hope this was helpful. If you guys have more questions, feel free to come over to my booth. Just for a show special, I'm offering this kit. It's normally $100, but it's on sale for $50. That's basically the cost of 2 roller bottles you'll get from big companies like doTERRA. So I tried to make it really easy and accessible for you guys to have. If you just want to purchase the card on what's in the herb kit and what they do, these are $3. So feel free to come over and talk to me and ask me questions. I'm just 2 rows over, straight across. So I would love to connect with you guys. In my Facebook group, it's just Healing Happy. I hop on every morning at 10 o'clock live and give you health tips and share information. And I do answer questions. So if you guys want to connect with me that way, I would love to have you there. So thank you. It was fun having you. I'm sorry it was so quick. I wish I could talk to you all day. Thank you. 7:05 is my booth. So if you want to come see me, I'm just right over here. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.